We are going to take a look at the Falcons' updated 53-man roster projection going into preseason week 3. But I just want to quickly thank all of our new subscribers from our week 2 watch party. It was a blast. And if you missed out, join us this Thursday night as well for a Falcons-Steelers preseason watch party. Like I said, today's show will take a look at an updated 53-man roster projection for Atlanta. Now, I just want to quickly say I am feeling a bit under the weather, so if I sound a little bit hoarse, just bear with me. But let's get right into it, starting with the quarterbacks. And I only have 2 quarterbacks making this 53-man roster, Desmond Ridder and Taylor Heineke. I think they have a spot for Logan Woodside on the practice squad. But Heineke is a very established backup quarterback, so I think there was enough confidence that you don't need to have a third quarterback just in case something were to happen to the starter. You know exactly who you are turning to at QB2. So those are the 2 quarterbacks I have making the roster for Atlanta. Now, as for the running back room, this one I've got way more than 2. Bijan, lock. Tyler Algier, lock. Cordero Patterson, lock. Carlos Washington, a UDFA, who has been very impressive so far. I have him making the roster. And then the fullback, Keith Smith, because you know Arthur Smith is going to want to run the football a lot. So Keith Smith could come in for some goal line packages. Ultimately, though, maybe the surprise, if you will, is Carlos Washington. He has impressed so far. I would keep him, especially because Atlanta is going to run the ball so much that these ball carriers are going to get a lot of touches. They're going to get a lot of tackles. So they might get nicked up a little bit. You might see a player miss a game or two. You want to have a deep running back room if you plan on being a top 3 NFL rushing team, which Atlanta definitely does. And I think they want to be closer to number 1 than number 3. Now, I just want to get a quick pulse check on everyone watching. If you are excited for the regular season, type me down in the comment section because it is so close. It is really this time like around the corner, and I can't wait for real Falcons football against the Panthers week 1. Type me if you are in the same boat. I've only got 5 wide receivers making the roster, which is on the skinnier side as far as par for the course in the NFL. But with 5 running backs, 4 running backs, 1 fullback, someone had to lose a spot, and I think it's the wide receiver room. Drake London, Matt Collins, Scotty Miller, they're locks to make the roster. I'd probably lump Kadarius Hodge into that as well, but he's just not quite the same tier as those 3 guys in terms of roster security. And then you've got Josh Ali, who we'll look at closer in just a moment, but I think he also makes this roster. So who does that leave off? J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, Penny Hart, Slade Bolden, Kalen Harris. I think Atlanta's going to roll with 5 wide receivers, and those are your top 5 guys so far. I've loved what I've seen on Josh Ali this preseason. I think he needs to make this roster. Maybe Atlanta tries to get him on their practice squad, but who on that depth chart has looked better than Ali so far for that final wide receiver spot? So far in the preseason, 4 grabs, 53 yards, but he just looks like the go-to guy in the second half for any quarterback. I think he ultimately cracks the 53-man roster. As for the offensive line, you've got your 5 starters, Matthews, Bergeron, Dahlman, Lindstrom, and McGarry. They all make it, of course. Jalen Mayfield, I'm not obsessed with so far in terms of making him as a roster lock, but I think he gets 1 more year at least. Josh Miles, Ryan Uziel, and Javon Gwynn, those are your next 4 guys. If I had a surprise cut, I would go with Kyle Hinton. Atlanta definitely has to, I wouldn't say beef up their offensive line, but it needs to improve after 2 preseason games in terms of just practice and the physicality and ultimately the violence from these guys because that's what they're paid to do. I don't think you're going to see any additions here, maybe a waiver wire pickups for some more depth at the tackle spot, but ultimately you've got 5 starters, and most of which are Ironmen, like Matthews, McGarry, Lindstrom. You can feel pretty confident about those guys not missing a snap. So I think ultimately Atlanta rolls with 9 offensive linemen. As for the tight end room here to wrap up the offensive side, 4 tight ends. Kyle Pitts, Jonnu Smith, Michael Pruitt, and Parker Hesse. If we know one thing about Arthur Smith, he loves his tight ends, right? He loves to get a 10 personnel, 11 personnel, 12 personnel, 22 personnel look on the field, 1 running back, 2 tight ends, some combination of that. So that means an extra tight end makes this roster, especially with Pitts coming off a season-ending injury last year. You've got some older guys like Jonnu Smith. It would be wise to bring on an extra tight end so that if someone gets hurt, you got to have the next man up philosophy already installed. Now, before we get to the defensive side of the football, give me 30 seconds to tell you guys about our sportsbook partner, BetUS. Go to chatsports.com/betfalcons. Enter promo code Falcons125. When you do that, they're going to give you a 125% deposit bonus. Now, some NFC South odds that I am drooling over: Falcons plus 200. Dennis Allen and the Saints are going to suck this year. The Bucks, has there ever been a team to win the division and the next year be the least favorite to win it at plus 800? Maybe the Broncos in 2016 after Peyton retired, but pretty wild to actually look at. And no, you're not having a rookie win the division in Bryce Young and the Carolina Panthers. Give me Atlanta plus 200. Now, like I said, the defensive side of the football: Grady Jarrett, David Onyemata, Calais Campbell, Zach Harrison. Those four are locks to make the roster. I think Timmy Horney is going to make the roster, and Taquan Graham, a former day 3 pick for Atlanta. Those are your 6 defensive linemen. Maybe Big Jelly Justin Ellis sneaks on, but I ultimately think these are the 6 guys Atlanta rolls with. As for the linebacker room here, you got some outside linebackers like Bud Dupree and Caden Ellis and Arnold Ebiketie making this roster. Caden Ellis and Troy Anderson on the inside, Lorenzo Carter and D'Angelo Malone rounding out your edge rushers, and then Tay Davis, who I think has looked pretty good so far throughout training camp in the preseason. I like him to be that first linebacker off the bench on the inside, and then Nate Landman also making the roster as that last linebacker. When we look at Atlanta's linebacker room, I liked what I saw out of Jones last week against the Bengals, but I think those are your 8 linebackers to make it. Ogundeji is injured right now, so not quite sure what his future holds, but those are my projections. Now, grade the Falcons' defense for me. Before we get to the secondary, what's your just off-the-cuff grade? A, B, C, D, or F? I think Atlanta's defense is a B-. All things considered, after the way they played last year, B- is pretty good for the turnaround after a very rocky 2022 campaign on the defensive side of the football. They've added a lot of veterans and no real long-term pieces at pass rusher. But we're talking about the 2023 Falcons defense, and I think it's a B- defense. Now for the corners: A.J. Terrell, Jeff Okudah, D. Alford. Those are your 3 starting cornerbacks, 2 outside, 1 at the nickel position. Hopefully Okudah will be ready to roll by week 1, but I don't think they're going to put him on short-term IR. They have to do that after roster cutdown day if they want to. That would knock him out the first 4 weeks, but it would open up an extra roster spot. Mike Hughes, Clark Phillips, and Cornell Armstrong round out the cornerback room. Trey Flowers is my surprising cut here. They signed him few months ago now at this point, so maybe they try and stick by him, but I like what I've seen out of Clark Phillips is making the roster as a rookie, and I like Hughes and Armstrong over Flowers, so those are my 6 cornerbacks to make the roster. Now, in the safety room, most teams roll with 4. I'm going with 5. Bates, Grant, Hawkins, and Helms and Abernathy are battling for that last spot. Why not both, right? Why not bring on an extra safety? Maybe you could put one in nickel if you're in a pinch if an injury pops up. But DeMarco Helms, he deserves a roster spot. 7th-round pick out of Alabama, has just looked too good to try and sneak him through the waiver wire. Some other team is going to claim him, and Atlanta will rue the day that they did not put Helms on their roster. Helms against the Bengals was sensational. A 92.1 overall PFF grade in 45 snaps. The Falcons definitely stress tested him, right? They gave him a lot of snaps, a lot of usage. They wanted to see how he would play over the course of not exactly a full game, but at least half a game, and he was awesome. He had a great pick on the Bengals, a nice adjustment on the ball, so Helms, in my book, has a spot on this roster. To round it out, our special teams projection now: Younghoe Koo, Pinion, and McCullough. There's no battle here. Those 3 guys, they're making the roster, no question about it. Now, we do have what I think might be the best draft we have ever done here at Falcons Today, and it comes at a pretty crucial juncture as we are all evened up at 11 apiece between Roley and myself. And today's draft, Roley thought of it, and he got in his bag, and it's a good one, Roley.
Yeah, I'm very excited for top duos, and this isn't just like top sports duos. This is duos across everything: food, actors, fictional characters. It doesn't matter. This is something I popped up in my head last night, and I said, Petey, we have to do this draft. And I couldn't be more happy to have the number 1 pick, where I went with peanut butter and jelly. It is very versatile. The classic sandwich as a kid. It still slaps today if you're having a nice little lunch, watching college football on Saturdays before maybe heading out. PB&J, goated.
Yeah, I can't clown that pick at all. For me, I went with Jordan and Pippen. I think when you think of duos, you think of Jordan and Pippen. They trademarked that idea of dynamic duo. They're the best duo in the history of sports. Give me Jordan and Pippen.
And you talk about Jordan Pippen. One is classified as the Batman. One's classified as the Robin. That's because the OG duo, Batman and Robin, such a dynamic duo. And I think you could argue it is the best. But listen, I'm a bigger guy. The peanut butter and jelly had to take a little bit of a priority for me. But Batman and Robin, best duo.
I got away from sports on my next duo, meat and cheese. What's better, a cheeseburger or a hamburger? Like, have you ever been to a charcuterie board and have just cheese or meat on it? It's a disaster. You need to have the other one there. It goes best together so well. You can't go wrong. Adding cheese to meat always makes it 10 times better. No one has turned it down. Meat and cheese.
This next pick is actually what inspired me to do the top duo draft. Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly, Step Brothers, Talladega Nights. Whenever they get together and make content, it is gold. Will Ferrell, John C. Reilly, best duo in the acting game.
I can't lie, I'm very jealous of that pick. My third selection, I went deep down memory lane. I grew up loving Scooby-Doo. So when I thought of duos, Scooby-Doo and Shaggy, I know it might not be on everyone's radars, but they are the top duo in cartoons. They're right there on the Mount Rushmore with the legends of Tom and Jerry, for example. I love Scooby-Doo and Shaggy. Give me that.
And with my last pick, I went with one that mostly everyone can relate with, and it's the shit and shower combo. Is there anything better than taking a nice dump and then hopping in the shower after, whether it be after a long weekend out or in the morning before you go to work? You know, the classic shit, shower, shave too. If that was a trio, this is one of the best duos out there. I had to take it with my last pick.
My final selection, I went a little bit chalkier, just followed football. Could you imagine football if it was a spring sport? It wouldn't feel the same. I love the leaves changing and just cooling off a little bit and then hopping on my couch for 7 hours of commercial-free football with my main man Scott Hansen on Red Zone. Fall and football, it just goes hand in hand. So let me know who had a better draft, type Rolly or type Petey in the comment section. This is a crucial draft, so I'm calling on everyone watching right now to get your votes in down below. Subscribe, like the video, comment, all that good stuff, and we will see you later.